The day I caught my son-in-law forging my signature for the second time, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat in my lawyer's office with documents spread across the mahogany desk and felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Pure, crystallized rage. "Mrs. Harrison," the forensic accountant said, sliding another paper toward me, "this signature on the reverse mortgage application doesn't match your handwriting pattern. Neither does this one on the power of attorney amendment." My hand trembled as I picked up the document. There it was, my name, Judith Marie Harrison, written in loops that were almost right but not quite, close enough to fool a busy notary, close enough to steal my entire life. "Hi, I'm Judith, and I'm 72 years old. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your state or country in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in this, because what I'm about to share with you isn't just my story. It's a warning. It started 18 months ago, on a Tuesday morning that felt like any other. I was in my kitchen in Scottsdale, Arizona, making coffee when my daughter Emily called. Her voice had that careful brightness that mothers learn to recognize as trouble. "Mom, Trevor and I were thinking, have you considered a reverse mortgage? You've got all this equity just sitting in the house, and wouldn't it be nice to have some extra income? Maybe take that cruise to Alaska you've been talking about." Trevor, my son-in-law of 8 years, the financial advisor with the expensive suits and the firm handshake that had impressed me when Emily first brought him home. The man who called me Mom Harrison and brought wine to Sunday dinners. I should have trusted my gut right then. Should have questioned why Emily sounded like she was reading from a script. But I was lonely. My husband Jack had been gone for 5 years, and the house, our beautiful 4-bedroom home with the mountain views, felt too big, too quiet, too full of memories. "I don't know, honey," I'd said, watching the steam rise from my coffee. "A reverse mortgage seems complicated, and I'm managing fine on Jack's pension and my Social Security." "That's exactly why Trevor thinks you should consider it," Emily pressed on. "You're managing fine, but you could be thriving. Plus, Mom, you're not getting any younger. What if you need long-term care someday? This could be a safety net." The phrase hung in the air. You're not getting any younger. At 72, I was still playing tennis twice a week, volunteering at the library, and maintaining my home perfectly well. But Emily's words planted a seed of doubt. "Let me think about it," I'd said. "Trevor knows a great broker," Emily continued quickly. "Daniel Chang. He specializes in reverse mortgages for seniors. Trevor could set up a meeting just so you can hear the options. No pressure." No pressure. Those 2 words should have been my first red flag, because in the months that followed, the pressure would become unbearable. And by the time I discovered what Trevor had done, he and Emily had already started making plans for my $890,000 home. The meeting with Daniel Chang happened 2 weeks later. Trevor arranged everything naturally. He picked me up, drove me to a sleek office building in downtown Phoenix, and sat beside me in the glass-walled conference room like a dutiful son-in-law. Daniel was smooth, 40-something, sharp suit, a presentation loaded on his laptop. He talked about home equity conversion mortgages, about how I could receive monthly payments while staying in my home, about how the loan wouldn't need to be repaid until I moved out or passed away. "And the best part, Mrs. Harrison," Daniel said, his smile revealing perfect white teeth, "you maintain ownership. This is your home. Nothing changes except you get to enjoy the equity you and your husband built over 35 years. Trevor nodded along, occasionally asking questions that made him sound knowledgeable and protective. "And Mom Harrison's name stays on the deed, correct? There are no hidden fees we should know about? The interest rate is competitive." I watched this performance and felt something uncomfortable shift in my chest. Trevor was being too helpful, too invested, but I pushed the feeling down. "I need time to think about this," I said finally. Daniel's smile never wavered. "Of course, this is a big decision. Take all the time you need." He slid a folder across the table. "Here's all the information. When you're ready, we can move forward. Trevor has my number." In the car, Trevor was quiet for the first few miles. Then, "What do you think, Mom Harrison?" "I think it sounds good on paper," I said carefully, "but I want to talk to my own financial advisor first." Trevor's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Just slightly, just enough for me to notice." "Sure, of course," he said. "Though you should know, most traditional financial advisors don't fully understand reverse mortgages. They're still operating on old information. Daniel specializes in this." "Still," I said firmly, "I want a second opinion." The conversation ended there, But something had changed. Trevor called twice that week, asking if I'd made an appointment with my advisor. Emily called too, her voice strained, asking if I'd thought any more about the reverse mortgage opportunity. Opportunity. When had it become an opportunity instead of an option? I did meet with my financial advisor, Robert Chen, a man I'd trusted for 15 years. He sat across from me in his modest office and frowned at Daniel's folder. "Judith, I'm not saying reverse mortgages are always bad," Robert said slowly. "But in your case, you're financially stable. You've got a solid pension, Social Security, savings. You don't need this. And the fees on these things can be substantial." "That's what I thought," I said, relief washing over me. "Also," Robert continued, his frown deepening, "why is your son-in-law pushing this so hard? Does he stand to benefit somehow?" The question hung between us like smoke. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I'm going to decline. You're right, I don't need it." I called Emily that evening to tell her my decision. She was silent for a long moment. "Mom, Trevor's really disappointed. He spent a lot of time researching this for you. I appreciate that, but it's my decision." Another pause. "Yeah, okay, I'll tell him." I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. For 3 months, things seemed normal. Emily and Trevor came to Sunday dinners. We celebrated Emily's birthday. Trevor brought his famous barbecue ribs to the 4th of July gathering, but underneath the normalcy, I felt distance growing. Emily's calls became less frequent. When I suggested lunch, she was always busy. Then the mail started changing. First, it was a letter from a title company I didn't recognize. "Regarding your recent inquiry about property documentation." I hadn't made any inquiry. I called them, and they seemed confused, said someone named Trevor Harrison had contacted them on my behalf to gather preliminary information for Mrs. Judith Harrison. "I didn't authorize that," I said sharply. The woman on the phone apologized. "He said he was your financial power of attorney?" My blood went cold. "I never gave anyone power of attorney." "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Harrison. We'll note that in our files." I hung up and immediately called Trevor's cell. It went to voicemail. I tried Emily. Same thing. When Emily finally called back 3 hours later, her voice was defensive before I even explained. "Mom, Trevor was just trying to help. He thought if he had POA, he could handle some of your bills, make things easier for you. You're getting older and we worry." "I'm 72, not 92, I said, my voice shaking. "And I didn't consent to this. Tell Trevor to stop making inquiries about my property." "God, Mom, we're just trying to help. Why are you being so paranoid?" Paranoid. The word stung. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived. This one from Daniel Chang's office. "Congratulations on moving forward with your home equity conversion mortgage. Please find and close the next steps." My hands shook as I read it. I hadn't moved forward with anything. I grabbed my phone and called Daniel's office. "Mr. Chang, this is Judith Harrison. I received a letter saying I'm moving forward with a reverse mortgage. I never agreed to that." There was a pause, papers rustling. "Mrs. Harrison, we have signed documentation from you. Trevor Harrison delivered it personally 3 days ago, along with your power of attorney paperwork." The room spun. "I signed nothing. I have given no one power of attorney." Another pause. Longer this time. "Mrs. Harrison, I think you should come to my office, today if possible." I drove there in a fog of fury and fear. Daniel met me in the same conference room, but this time his smooth demeanor was gone. He looked worried. "Mrs. Harrison, these are the documents Trevor provided." He spread them across the table. There was my signature, or something very close to it, on a reverse mortgage application, on a power of attorney form, on a preliminary approval document. "This isn't my signature," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Daniel pulled out a magnifying glass, actually pulled out a magnifying glass and studied the signatures. "The loops are wrong. The pressure points are different. Mrs. Harrison, I think someone has forged your signature." "Trevor," I said flatly. Daniel nodded slowly. "I'm legally obligated to report this, and I'm going to recommend you contact a lawyer immediately." I didn't go home. I drove straight to Mitchell Associates, the law firm that had handled Jack's estate. Margaret Mitchell, senior partner, saw me immediately. One look at my face and she cleared her calendar. "Tell me everything," she said, closing her office door. I laid it all out. The pressure to get a reverse mortgage, Trevor's unauthorized inquiries, the forged signatures. As I spoke, Margaret took notes, her expression growing darker. "Judith, this is serious. We're talking about fraud, possibly elder financial abuse. We need to move fast." She picked up her phone. "I'm calling our forensic accountant. We need to see what else Trevor might have done." What else could there be? I asked, but I already felt sick. Margaret's eyes were kind but firm. When someone forges signatures once, they rarely stop at once. The forensic accountant was a woman named Lisa Chen, no relation to my financial advisor, Robert. She arrived within an hour, carrying a leather briefcase and an iPad. Late 30s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. "Mrs. Harrison, I need access to all your financial accounts, property records, credit reports, everything. Can you give me authorization?" I signed the papers with shaking hands. "This will take a few days," Lisa said. "In the meantime, don't confront Trevor or Emily. Don't let them know you're investigating. Act normal. Act normal? How do you act normal when your son-in-law is stealing your life?" That Sunday, they came for dinner. I made pot roast, Jack's favorite. Emily hugged me at the door. Trevor brought wine and kissed my cheek. "How are you, Mom Harrison?" Trevor asked, all smiles and warmth. "Oh, fine," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, keeping busy with the library volunteer work. We ate dinner. We talked about Emily's job at the marketing firm. Trevor told a funny story about a difficult client. I laughed in the right places, poured more wine, brought out apple pie. And all the while, I watched Trevor, really watched him. The way he glanced around my living room, his eyes lingering on Jack's oil painting, the antique clock, the expensive Persian rug, like he was cataloging assets, like he was already spending my money in his mind. "Mom, you seem distracted," Emily said, touching my hand. "Just tired, honey. Getting old." "See?" Trevor said, shooting Emily a meaningful look. "This is exactly why we think—" "Trevor," Emily cut him off, her voice warning. "What?" I asked, forcing a smile. "What do you think?" "Nothing," Emily said quickly. "Trevor, help me clear the plates." I watched them in the kitchen, heads together, whispering. Emily looked stressed. Trevor looked angry. When they came back, the evening ended quickly. Suddenly, Emily had a headache. Trevor had an early meeting. After they left, I stood in my empty house and called Margaret. "I can't do this," I said. "I can't pretend everything's fine." "2 more days," Margaret said. "Lisa is almost done with the audit. Judith, we need to know the full scope before we move. Can you hold on for 2 more days?" I looked at the framed photo of Jack on the mantel. He'd always said I was the strongest person he knew. "Yes," I said. 2 more days. Lisa called on Wednesday morning. "Mrs. Harrison, can you come to Margaret's office? We have the results." The tone of her voice told me everything. This was bad. I arrived at Mitchell Associates at 2 o'clock. Margaret and Lisa were waiting in the conference room, documents covering every inch of the long table. It looked like a crime scene made of paper. "Sit down, Judith," Margaret said gently. Lisa opened her laptop. "Mrs. Harrison, I found 2 separate instances of signature forgery, the reverse mortgage application and a document attempting to add Trevor Harrison as a joint owner on your property deed." My vision blurred. "Joint owner?" "He filed it with the county recorder's office 3 weeks ago," Lisa continued. "It was flagged because the notary's signature appeared irregular. They're investigating, which is actually lucky for you. It means the transfer didn't go through." "How much?" I asked, my voice hollow. If the reverse mortgage had gone through, how much would I have lost? Lisa exchanged a glance with Margaret. The initial lump sum he applied for was $450,000. Over time, with interest and fees, you'd lose the entire home equity, approximately $890,000. The number hung in the air, nearly $1 million. My entire life with Jack reduced to a number on a spreadsheet. "There's more," Lisa said quietly. "I found evidence that Trevor has been researching nursing homes in your area. Specifically, the costs and the process for involuntary commitment of elderly relatives." The room tilted. "What?" Margaret leaned forward. "Judith, I think Trevor's plan was to get the reverse mortgage, have himself added to the deed, then have you declared incompetent and moved to a care facility. Once you were out of the house, he'd have control of the property. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just theft. This was a complete hijacking of my life." "My daughter," I whispered. "Does Emily know?" Lisa pulled up an email chain. "These are communications between Trevor and Daniel Chang, the broker. In several emails, Trevor references getting Emily on board and handling Emily's concerns. My interpretation? She knows something, but maybe not everything." My heart broke. My Emily, my only child. How could she be part of this? "What do?" I asked. Margaret pulled out a legal pad. "First, we file a police report. This is fraud, attempted theft, elder abuse, multiple criminal charges. Second, we get a restraining order against Trevor. Third, we protect your assets immediately. How? An irrevocable trust, Margaret said. We transfer your home into a trust that Trevor cannot touch, cannot claim, cannot access. You'll maintain the right to live there for the rest of your life, but the property itself becomes untouchable. Do it, I said without hesitation. Judith, once we do this, there's no going back. Trevor will know you're onto him. This will get ugly. I thought about Jack, about the house we'd bought in 1978, when mortgage rates were 11%, and everyone said we were crazy, about the garden we'd planted together, the walls we'd painted, the memories in every corner. I don't care how ugly it gets, I said. This is my home, and I'm not going down without a fight. Margaret smiled. That's what I was hoping you'd say. If you're watching this, and you've ever felt powerless, ever felt like someone was taking advantage of you, please hit that subscribe button, because what happened next is going to show you that we're never too old to fight back. The trust paperwork took 3 days to prepare. Margaret worked with an estate attorney named Richard Flores, a specialist in asset protection. We met in Margaret's office on a Friday afternoon, and Richard walked me through every page. This is an irrevocable living trust, Richard explained, pointing to the dense legal language. Once you sign this, the house legally belongs to the trust, not to you personally. You're the beneficiary with the right to live there, but you can't sell it, mortgage it, or transfer it without the trustee's approval. Who's the trustee? I asked. I recommend making it Margaret with Lisa Chen as the alternate. People you trust completely who have no financial interest in the property. I signed every page. My hand was steady this time. With each signature, I felt stronger. This was my countermove, my checkmate. When this is recorded with the county, Trevor will be able to see it, Margaret warned. Public record. He'll know immediately. Good, I said. I want him to know. We recorded the trust documents on Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, my phone was ringing. Emily. I let it go to voicemail. She called again and again, 5 times in 2 hours. The voicemails escalated from confused to frantic. Mom, why is the house in a trust? What's going on? Mom, Trevor saw the county records. He's really upset. You need to call us. Mom, this is crazy. Why are you doing this? We're your family. I didn't call back. Instead, I forwarded the voicemails to Margaret and Detective Sarah Rodriguez from the Phoenix Police Department Financial Crimes Unit, who had opened an investigation. Tuesday morning, Emily showed up at my door. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing yoga pants and an old sweater. This wasn't my polished, professional daughter. This was someone falling apart. Mom, please. We need to talk, she said, her voice breaking. Despite everything, she was still my daughter. I let her in. We sat in the living room where we'd shared 1,000 conversations. Emily twisted her hands in her lap, not meeting my eyes. Why did you put the house in a trust? She asked finally. Why did your husband forge my signature? I replied calmly. Emily's head snapped up. What? Twice, Emily. He forged my signature twice. Once on a reverse mortgage application for $450,000. Once trying to add himself to my deed. The color drained from Emily's face. No, Mom. There must be some mistake. I pulled out copies of the documents Lisa had prepared, the forgeries side by side with my real signature. No mistake. A forensic accountant confirmed it. The police are investigating. Emily stared at the papers, her hands shaking. I didn't know about the deed thing. I swear, Mom. But you knew about the reverse mortgage? She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. He said you'd agreed to it. He said you'd signed the papers but then got confused and forgotten. He said you were starting to have memory problems and that we needed to help you before you made mistakes. Memory problems. There it was. The narrative Trevor had been building. The incompetent elderly woman who couldn't manage her own affairs. Emily, I don't have memory problems. I'm sharper than Trevor will ever be, and he was planning to steal everything. Emily sobbed into her hands. I trusted him. God, Mom, I trusted him completely. He said we were protecting you. Protecting me, I repeated bitterly. Did he tell you about researching nursing homes? About how to have me declared incompetent? Her head jerked up, eyes wide with horror. What? No, he wouldn't. He did. My forensic accountant found his browser history, his emails. Emily, he was planning to take my house and put me in a facility. My daughter looked at me like her world was collapsing. Maybe it was. I need to talk to him. There has to be an explanation. The explanation is that he's a con artist, I said, and you need to decide right now. Are you with him or with me? Mom, he's my husband. And I'm your mother. My voice rose for the first time. The woman who raised you alone after your father died, who worked 2 jobs to put you through college, who has never asked you for anything, and you're choosing him? Emily stood abruptly, anger flashing across her face. This is crazy. Trevor loves you. He calls you Mom. He wouldn't do this. The documents don't lie. Maybe your precious forensic accountant is wrong. Maybe this is all some misunderstanding. Her voice turned sharp, defensive. And putting the house in a trust? That's extreme, Mom. That's paranoid. The word again, paranoid. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my house and tell Trevor if he comes near me or my property, I'm calling the police. Emily's face crumpled. Mom, please. Out. She left and I locked the door behind her. Then I sat on my couch and let myself cry for the first time since this nightmare began. Not for the money, not for the house, but for my daughter, who was so deep in Trevor's manipulation that she couldn't see the truth right in front of her. The next morning, Daniel Chang called. Mrs. Harrison, I wanted you to know, Trevor came to my office yesterday afternoon. He was aggressive, demanding to know why I'd betrayed him by talking to you. I had to ask him to leave. Did he threaten you? Not explicitly. But Mrs. Harrison, I've dealt with a lot of people in this business. Trevor is desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. Please be careful. I thanked him and called Margaret immediately. I think Trevor's going to do something. I think so too, Margaret said grimly. Detective Rodriguez wants to accelerate the investigation. Can you come to the station this afternoon to give a formal statement? At the police station, Detective Rodriguez was all business. Late 40s, sharp suit, kind eyes that had clearly seen too much human ugliness. Mrs. Harrison, with your permission, I'd like to set up a controlled meeting with Trevor. We'll wire you, record everything. If he admits to the forgery or threatens you, we can arrest him immediately. My heart pounded. You want me to confront him? I want you to give him enough rope to hang himself, Rodriguez said. Are you willing to do that? I thought about my $890,000 home, about Jack, about Emily, about every senior citizen out there who gets taken advantage of because people think we're too old to fight back. Yes, I said. Let's do it. They set up the meeting for Thursday afternoon at my house. The plan was simple, but terrifying. I would invite Trevor over under the pretense of wanting to work things out. Detective Rodriguez and 2 other officers would be in an unmarked van outside. I'd wear a wire, a tiny microphone clipped inside my cardigan. Wednesday night, I barely slept. Margaret had coached me on what to say, how to guide the conversation toward admissions without being obvious. Let him talk, she'd said. Guilty people love to justify themselves. Thursday morning, I called Trevor's cell. He answered on the first ring. Mom Harrison. His voice was cold, so different from the warm son-in-law persona he'd maintained for 8 years. Trevor, we need to talk. Can you come by the house today, without Emily? A pause. Why without Emily? Because I want to understand your side of things. Just you and me. Another pause. Longer. I could almost hear him calculating, weighing options. Fine, 2 o'clock. I spent the morning cleaning the house. A nervous habit. Detective Rodriguez arrived at 1:30 to wire me up and go over the plan one final time. Remember, we need him to admit to the forgery or make threats. Don't put yourself in danger. If anything feels wrong, say the code word coffee and we'll come in immediately. She left through the back door. I sat in my living room, the wire feeling enormous under my sweater, even though it was barely the size of a button, and waited. Trevor arrived exactly at 2. Through the window, I watched him get out of his BMW, straighten his tie, school his features into something resembling concern. He was preparing for a performance. I opened the door before he could knock. Trevor, come in. He stepped inside, his eyes immediately scanning the room. Looking for what? Evidence? Witnesses? So, he said, settling onto the couch without being invited, Emily says you've been making some serious accusations. Not accusations, facts. You forged my signature. Twice. He didn't even flinch. That's a strong word, Mom Harrison. Forged. I prefer to think of it as helping you with paperwork you were too confused to handle yourself. My pulse raced. Keep him talking. I'm not confused, Trevor. I never authorized a reverse mortgage or adding you to my deed. He leaned back, spreading his arms across the top of the couch, relaxed, confident. See, this is exactly the problem. You think you remember things clearly but you don't. It's called age-related cognitive decline. You agreed to the reverse mortgage in Daniel's office. You were just too embarrassed to admit you didn't fully understand it, so you pretended it never happened. That's a lie, is it? He smiled. And for the first time, I saw the cruelty underneath the charm. Or is it that a 72-year-old woman is losing her grip on reality? Which story do you think people will believe? The one supported by forensic evidence. His smile faltered slightly. Evidence can be interpreted many ways. And trust me, Mom Harrison, I can afford better lawyers than you can. Can you? I leaned forward. Because I'm wondering, why do you need my $890,000 house so badly? What kind of financial trouble are you in, Trevor? His mask slipped completely. Trevor's face darkened. You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I? A successful financial advisor, living in that expensive condo in Tempe, driving a luxury car, wearing designer suits. But I'm guessing it's all leverage, isn't it? All debt, and you need money fast. He stood abruptly, his calm facade shattering. You stupid old woman. You're sitting on nearly $1 million in equity while you live alone in this oversized house. You don't need it. You're going to die soon anyway, and Emily's your only heir. All I wanted was to access what's rightfully going to be ours eventually. So you decided to steal it now. I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart, by forging documents, by planning to have me declared incompetent. It wouldn't have been hard, Trevor shot back, pacing now. A few doctor's appointments, some carefully worded concerns about your memory, your decision-making. The court side with family members who are worried about elderly relatives all the time. You'd be in a nice facility, well cared for, and Emily and I would manage your assets responsibly. You mean spend them? We're entitled to them. His voice rose. Do you know what Emily and I could do with that money? The opportunities we're missing because you're hoarding wealth you don't even use? It's my money, my house. Trevor stopped pacing and turned to face me, his expression ugly. Not anymore. You put it in that trust, which was incredibly stupid, but trust can be contested. I know estate law, Mom Harrison. I know how to prove someone wasn't mentally competent when they signed documents. It was a threat, clear and recorded. So you'll try to break the trust by claiming I'm incompetent? If I have to. He stepped closer, looming over where I sat. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to dissolve that trust. You're going to sign a new power of attorney giving me control of your finances. And you're going to stop with this ridiculous fraud investigation. And if I don't? His smile was cold. Then I'll make your life hell. I'll file for guardianship. I'll tell every doctor, every judge, every social worker that you're a danger to yourself. I'll have Emily testify about your confusion, your memory problems. By the time I'm done, you won't be able to buy a coffee without someone's permission. My hands trembled, but I kept my voice steady. You destroy your wife's mother? Emily will get over it. She'll understand I did what was necessary for our future. He leaned down, his face inches from mine. Last chance, old woman. Dissolve the trust or I'll destroy you. I stood slowly, meeting his eyes. There's a problem with your plan, Trevor. What's that? I'm not as helpless as you think, and you just admitted to fraud, extortion, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse on a recorded wire. The blood drained from his face. What? I reached under my cardigan and pulled out the microphone. You're done. The front door burst open. Detective Rodriguez and two uniformed officers rushed in, weapons drawn. Trevor Harrison, you're under arrest. Trevor tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. They had him in handcuffs in seconds, reading him his rights while he shouted about entrapment, about lawyers, about how this wouldn't stick. I watched them take Trevor away, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. Through the window, I saw neighbors gathering, phones out, recording. The scandal was public now. There was no taking it back. Detective Rodriguez stayed behind, turning off the recording equipment. Mrs. Harrison, you were incredibly brave. The recording is clear. We've got him on fraud, attempted theft, elder abuse, and extortion. He's looking at serious prison time. What about Emily? I asked quietly. Rodriguez's expression softened. Based on the evidence, she was manipulated rather than complicit in the forgery. We won't be charging her, but that's your call on a personal level. After Rodriguez left, I sat in my quiet house. My phone rang, Emily's number. I answered. Mom, her voice was raw from crying. The police just called. They arrested Trevor. They told me everything he did, everything he planned. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know, honey. I should have believed you. I should have seen it. He was my husband, and I thought—" Her voice broke. "I thought he loved me, but he was just using me to get to your money, wasn't he? Emily, he fooled a lot of people. He was very good at it. Can you ever forgive me?" I closed my eyes, remembering Emily as a little girl, holding my hand, trusting me to guide her. "You're my daughter. Of course I forgive you, but you have to promise me something. Anything. Get a good lawyer. File for divorce. Don't let him manipulate you anymore. I already called a divorce attorney. And Mom, I'm going to testify against him. Whatever the prosecutors need." 3 months later, I sat in a courtroom and watched Trevor Harrison plead guilty to 7 counts of fraud, attempted theft, and elder financial abuse. The evidence was overwhelming. The forged signatures, the recorded confession, the email trails Lisa had uncovered. His lawyer had negotiated a plea deal: 8 years in prison, restitution of all legal fees, and a permanent restraining order. The judge, a woman in her 60s, looked at Trevor with unconcealed disgust. "Mr. Harrison, you targeted your own mother-in-law, a woman who welcomed you into her family. You exploited your position of trust to commit financial crimes against a senior citizen. This court takes such offenses seriously." Trevor didn't look at me, not once. Outside the courthouse, Emily hugged me. She was different now. Thinner, sadder, but stronger. She'd moved into a small apartment, started therapy, and was rebuilding her life. "I'm proud of you," I told her. "I learned from the best," she said, squeezing my hand. Today I still live in my house in Scottsdale, my $890,000 home, safe in its irrevocable trust. I tend Jack's garden, volunteer at the library, and play tennis twice a week. The house that Trevor tried to steal is filled with peace again. A lot. I'm 72 years old, and I fought back against someone who thought I was too old, too confused, too vulnerable to protect myself. And I won. Not because I was lucky, but because I refused to be a victim. If someone is trying to take advantage of you or someone you love, speak up, get help, fight back. We're never too old to stand our ground.